What's the Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is
SPTV.
Welcome back, everybody, for a little bit more SPTV. Oh, my. David Miscavige done messed up. Scientology done messed up once again. The biggest news going on in the Scientology world right now is the brand new trafficking lawsuit that has been filed against David Miscavige, Gavin Potter, RTC, Religious Technology Center, CSI, the Church of Scientology International, and Bridge Publications. Those three organizations are all Scientology-related organizations. David Miscavige is, of course, the world's smallest cult leader. Gavin Potter is a figure we've never really spoken about. But if you're a Scientologist in Los Angeles, you know who Gavin Potter is. I'm going to share with you some select portions out of this brand new lawsuit. This thing was only unsealed 3 or 4 days ago. Before I do, though, let me mention a couple things here, because this might be the biggest thing, the biggest new thing going on in Scientology world. But it's only one of a few major things on David Miscavige's radar that is making every day a bad day to be David Miscavige, but every day a great day not to be in a cult. So remember, there is still a labor trafficking lawsuit playing out in federal court here in Tampa, near where I live. That lawsuit hit a point where the judge ordered that it had to be dealt with in internal arbitration. However, a request was made to the court to appeal that decision, to allow the attorneys to appeal that decision to the appellate court, even though the case has been stayed for the moment. That request was approved, and that decision has now been appealed to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. So that labor trafficking lawsuit against David Miscavige is still very much ongoing. And by the way, this new lawsuit, this is the different kind of trafficking lawsuit. This is not a labor trafficking lawsuit. It's the other kind of trafficking. Okay, so you have the labor trafficking lawsuit against David Miscavige playing out. You have a grand jury investigation into Scientology, David Miscavige and Danny Masterson, for obstruction of justice. That is ongoing. And of course, the biggest thing that we're all waiting for right now on August 4th is regards Scientologist in good standing and convicted serial rapist Danny Masterson is going to be sentenced on August 4th, facing a minimum of 30 years in prison. The only other Scientologist I know of who is facing more years in prison than Danny Masterson is a gentleman by the name of Rex Fowler, who I was in the Sea organization with Rex's son, Alex. I wonder how many Scientologists even know what Rex Fowler is serving life in prison without the possibility of parole for. In 2009, Rex Fowler, OT8, if I'm not mistaken, someone can fact check me on that, but I remembered Rex being at least OT7, but perhaps OT8. OT8, Rex Fowler, shot his business partner in the head at point blank range, murdering him. This was relating to a dispute of regarding hundreds of thousands of dollars Rex Fowler had funneled to the Church of Scientology through their mutually owned business without the consent of his business partner. And so Rex Fowler is currently serving life in prison without the possibility of parole for murder. I wonder how many of these Scientologists actually knew that. Okay, so you got that stuff going on. Danny Masterson will be sentenced on August 4th. And now we have this other trafficking lawsuit against David Miscavige and Gavin Potter. Let's get into it. I'm going to read to you some select portions out of this thing. Don't worry, we're not just going to randomly scroll through it. I already have noted down the portions that I'm going to read. Trying to keep things a little more concise on these live streams. Okay, let's start. Let's start by just looking at the complaint here. By the way, Graham Barry is one of the attorneys representing the Jane Doe. Brittany Henderson and Bradley Edwards are, well, actually, look, Bradley Edwards isn't specifically named here, but his email address is there. Brittany Henderson and Bradley Edwards are two very high-powered attorneys that were involved in the Jeffrey Epstein litigation These folks do not mess around. Okay, Second Amendment complaint for damages: negligence, sexual assault, sexual battery, negligent supervision, failure to warn, negligent employment retention, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, and public nuisance. Okay, so first item, I'm just going to read for you the first paragraph under parties. Plaintiff Jane Doe is an adult female born in August 1974. Plaintiff was a minor at the time of the sexual abuse alleged herein. The name used by plaintiff in this amended complaint is not plaintiff's true name, but is instead a fictitious name used to protect the identity of the plaintiff, a survivor of childhood sexual assault. There exists good cause for plaintiff to use a pseudonym due to the harmful effect of the public disclosure of her identity and the harm likely to be inflicted by the defendants upon Jane Doe. Plaintiff's undersigned counsel will provide the identity of plaintiff to all defendants. As such, defendants suffer no prejudice as a result of concealing her identity in the amended complaint and verifications. Yeah, let's just see if Scientology has the audacity to try and expose the identity of Jane Doe. We are now going to jump all the way down to item 24. Okay, so check this out. This gets really interesting. Upon L. Ron Hubbard's death in 1986, David Miscavige assumed complete control of the Church of Scientology International and all related entities. David Miscavige's official title is the chairman of the board of the Religious Technology Center. Upon information and belief, it is known to all within Scientology that everything of import must be approved by David Miscavige and that his orders are unappealable and absolute. David Miscavige bears the ultimate responsibility for ensuring the standard and pure application of L. Ron Hubbard's technologies of Dianetics and Scientology and for keeping Scientology working. That is an incredibly accurate statement that any Scientologist would even agree to. Okay, 25. Management oversight for Scientology-affiliated entities and operations is, on paper, vested in a watchdog committee consisting of upper echelon individuals situated within Church of Scientology International. By the way, you guys, Amy Scobie and Mike Rinder were both, you'll hear these guys referred to as high-level Scientology officials. Both of them at one point in time served as a member of the watchdog committee. Okay, the Watchdog Committee has an Office of Special Affairs that handles internal security and outside legal affairs and serves as an intelligence and spying operation. Through its operatives and agents, OSA tracks, monitors, and directs retaliation campaigns and ruinous litigation against defectors and critics of the church. The head of OSA and other OSA officers report to and take direction exclusively from David Miscavige and his senior Religious Technology Center officers. Another incredibly accurate statement that even a Scientologist, as long as they were being honest, would completely agree to. Okay, let's jump forward to 31. The Scientology Sea Organization. The senior hierarchy of Scientology organizations, including but not limited to RTC, CSI, Bridge Publications, are exclusively staffed and run by an unincorporated paramilitary organization known as the Sea Org, the Sea Organization. As the most senior officer in the Sea Organization, David Miscavige controls, directs, and supervises the Sea Organization and its members. Guys, this references something that I always find really interesting to mention. Did you guys know the Sea Organization does not legally exist? It's not a company. It's not a corporation. It's not a nonprofit. Technically speaking, the Sea Organization doesn't exist. It's really remarkable to consider. And yet it is through the Sea Organization that David Miscavige controls all of Scientology. If it were not for the existence of the Sea Organization, Miscavige wouldn't have a mechanism with which to control Scientology. It's interesting to consider. Okay, so let's see. That was paragraph 31. We're going to jump forward to 37 or item 37. All right, check this out. It's really good stuff in here. The culture, let me make sure my screen is okay. Good. The culture within Scientology and the Sea Org is to punish those who divulge any information that would be overt. I think it should say would be an overt or against the tenets of Scientology. An overt is an act or a failure to act that leads to injury, degradation, or reduction of the self or others. That's a really good description of what that word means in Scientology. Overts often lead the person committing the acts to cover them up. The act of not revealing or talking about an overt is called a withhold. The withhold is seen as an act of dishonesty to the self and one's colleagues. Within the Sea Org, a primary ethical concern is with handling overts and any resulting withholds. It is the duty of Sea Org members to report their own overts and withholds, or any committed by others of which they become aware, to their unit's ethics officer. Typical overts might involve negligence at one's assigned task, theft of church funds, or illicit sexual activity. All such overts are maintained in the Sea Org members' ethics folder. This is a really good description of Scientology policies and procedures. Okay, let's jump over to number 40. Defendants' culture of child sexual abuse. 40. Religious institutions nationwide have experienced serious problems with child abuse and the sexual exploitation of children. The Religious Technology Center and the Church of Scientology International are no exception. The Church of Scientology International's aggressive practices and rules for forcing secrecy upon all members have kept victims from coming forward even longer than abuse victims in other religious institutions, such as the Catholic Church or the Jehovah's Witnesses. Yet, like those religious institutions, defendants' religious affiliation and doctrines do not provide a license for child abuse or sexual assault, nor can defendants insulate themselves from responsibility for the actions of their agents, nor the illegal effects of their rules, practices, or doctrines. Gotta love it. 41. Scientologists are expressly prohibited from contacting police or other emergency responders to report any crime committed by any member. Upon information and belief, a policy exists within Scientology called ethics protection, which details why it is okay for the church to take no action when criminal acts occur. And more alarmingly, why the act of reporting such a crime to church officials or authorities is considered a high crime subject to punishment. Okay. Okay. For what it's worth here, I will say that it is not a high crime to report these things to church officials. It is a high crime to report them to law enforcement. But there is part of the policy of ethics protection, though, that does say that when someone who is a high producer, an upstat, a good, valuable staff member, is generally considered a high producer and they have ethics protection. When such a person is reported, proper church policy is to investigate the person writing the report, not the person who's being reported on. And that's interesting to note. I'm saying this to be as factually accurate as possible so that Scientologists who watch my video go, oh yeah, this guy's being fair. The fact that the person who writes the report will be investigated doesn't necessarily mean that submitting the report was a high crime. And but that's, these legal briefs like this, it's actually very, very hard to get the Scientology facts very, very correct. And that's why I was actually quite shocked that the previous paragraphs I've already read to you were as incredibly accurate as they were. So anyway, I just wanted to make that little clarification there. Okay. And the next paragraph we are going to read is 43. Okay, 43. Defendants' disdain for law enforcement is outlined in its policies. Police, and this is a direct quote, guys, from L. Ron Hubbard material here, this next paragraph. Police and courts offer an open-armed opportunity to the vicious and corrupt to establish themselves in a position of safety while satisfying their strange appetites of perverted viciousness towards their fellow man. Justice systems thereby become a sort of cancer, which erode every splendid ambition and achievement of the decent citizen. Justice apparently cannot be trusted in the hands of man. Who is public enemy number one today? The FBI. Its obvious target is every opinion leader and public-spirited group in America. This quote, you guys, simple quote, justice cannot be trusted in the hands of man. This is not just some throwaway quote that somebody dug up from some deep, dark volume of Scientology. This is a quote openly and commonly used by ethics and justice officials in Scientology for why no Scientologist in a right frame of mind would ever involve the authorities in the civil authorities in any matter concerning any Scientologist for any reason whatsoever. The only reason to involve the authorities is out of some sense of getting justice. And L. Ron Hubbard said that justice cannot be trusted in the hands of man. Now you might go, well, don't Scientologists consider themselves part of mankind? No. L. Ron Hubbard calls Scientologists homo novus, not homo sapiens. When L. Ron Hubbard says man or mankind, he's referring to the lowly non-Scientologists. This is really how Scientologists think, you guys. Okay. The next paragraph we're going to is, the next one, 44. Through this and other directives, Church of Scientology International instructs its membership that the only answer to a crime being committed by its members, including rape, sexual abuse, or child abuse, is Scientology and the teachings of Hubbard, not law enforcement. If senior officials in the Religious Technology Center or the Church of Scientology International or the Sea Organization or any other Scientology organization received credible evidence that child sexual abuse had occurred within the church, the officials covered up the incident rather than report the abuse to local authorities. That is 100% correct. Next paragraph, 45. Upon information and belief, in most instances, any alleged perpetrator of child abuse or sexual abuse was simply moved to a different Scientology base or location. Sometimes the alleged perpetrator was sent to the RPF. The RPF is Scientology's like prison and rehabilitation camp for Sea Org members. Other times, no action was taken. Victims, however, are blamed for pulling in the abuse upon themselves and are forced to either apologize to their abuser for causing the assault or undergo a program to learn how they caused the assault. It's absolutely disgusting, but it's 100% accurate. 47. Meanwhile, anyone who speaks out against Scientology, its practices, or its members is declared a suppressive person, or an SP, and subjected to attacks, harassment, embarrassment, humiliation, and other means of destroying someone's life via the Scientology tactic called fair game. The stated purpose behind the fair game policy is to silence individuals who are deemed enemies by whatever means necessary. A person who is declared fair game may be deprived of property or injured by any means by any Scientologist without any discipline of the Scientologist, may be tricked, sued, lied to, or destroyed. Defendants' policies and procedures encourage and instruct followers to ruin the individual utterly. Guys, it is interesting to note that in Scientology, abusing women, children, and the elderly in even the most serious and disgusting of ways is not grounds for being expelled from Scientology. But putting up videos on YouTube calling out Scientology's abusive policies and practices, that'll get you kicked out faster than David Miscavige can put on his little shoes in the morning. It really is something to consider. And you Scientologists who are still sort of on the fence really should ask yourselves, what the hell is the deal with that? Saying some critical comments about David Miscavige will get you declared a suppressive person like that. But sexually abusing a child? No. Look at Danny Masterson, guys. Danny Masterson is a convicted serial rapist and, most importantly, still a Scientologist in good standing. Ask yourselves, how in the hell is that possible? Okay. Back to the document. Okay, so that was paragraph 47. The next one we're going to do is 48 and 49, and then we're almost done here. Okay, the fair game policy and practice also directs followers to discover what the person really is defending and threaten it effectively. Nothing is off limits, including friends and family of an enemy of Scientology. The threatening fair game tactics scares followers into submission, prohibiting them from suppressing any discontent with Scientology or its leaders or members, even criminal behavior. I feel like that should say the opposite. The threatening fair game tactics scares followers into submission, prohibiting them from suppressing. It should be the opposite there. It should be encouraging them to suppress or prohibiting them from exposing. I think I'm correct in that interpretation there. And okay, here's a really one of the most important items from this filing, in my opinion. Number 49. The prohibition against contacting authorities created a culture and atmosphere in which the sexual assault of minors within the Church of Scientology International was tolerated and even facilitated. Defendants' practice of concealing the identities, propensities, and current assignments and or residences of these perpetrators has enabled and empowered such abusers to sexually assault and or continue to place at risk countless minors in California and many other locations where defendants conduct their business. Defendants have greatly increased the danger to children by failing to report childhood sexual abuse by their agents and or subagents to law enforcement. Defendants have further increased the danger to minors by attacking the credibility of victims who report abuse and by making affirmative representations to and or withholding information regarding the character and fitness of its volunteers, agents, and or representatives, and by failing to disclose negative information regarding sexual misconduct by such adults. Additionally, an unknown number of defendants' former agents whose propensities defendants have been aware of for years but have disclosed to no one would be able to continue to sexually assault and or place at risk countless minors at locations where defendants' former agents now reside. Okay, we're going to jump forward to paragraph or item number 52 here. The risk for the sexual abuse of minors was especially high, given that a principle of Scientology, ingrained in members initially by Hubbard and subsequently by the Church of Scientology International. Wait, I'm lost here. Hold on. The risk for sexual abuse of minors was especially high, given that a principle of Scientology. Oh, it should be principle PLE, not PAL. Okay. A principle of Scientology is that humans are all immortal and reincarnated. Each person was a being billions of years old, with some in smaller bodies than others. Therefore, children are treated as though they are adults in the bodies of children. This is 100% an accurate representation of what Scientology believes. 53, defendants' conduct evidences a policy of secrecy that has created a culture of hidden sexual abuse to which plaintiff and many other minors have fallen victim. And the acts of defendants as alleged herein constitute a cover-up as defined by California Civil Code, And then this goes on to give some details about Gavin Potter himself and his role in this. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to not get into that part of the lawsuit just yet. The further details of this lawsuit go on to describe some of what Jane Doe in this case personally experienced as a young minor child girl in Scientology, born and raised in Scientology, and then what happened when she was in her young teenage years of being groomed and recruited for the Sea Org by Gavin Potter, and how Gavin Potter sexually assaulted her as a minor and then groomed her, and then she was forced to marry him in the Sea Organization when she was 16 years old. Jane Doe then became pregnant with Gavin's child at 19 years old. At 19 years old, she left the Sea Organization to raise that child. Gavin Potter stayed in the Sea Organization, where he still is today. Gavin Potter, in my experience in the Sea Organization, was Gavin Potter was known as either an amazing fundraiser or an amazing recruiter. He did both. When I was in the Sea Org, to the best of my recollection, he was actually a fundraiser for the Freewinds ship. That's what I recall. But he was one of these hot shots. Well, I mean, if you make a lot of money in Scientology, you can pretty much do whatever you want. You want to talk about getting away with murder. You want to talk about having ethics protection. Nothing gets you ethics protection in Scientology like being able to raise money. And maybe second behind that is being good at recruiting people. Gavin Potter was a Sea Org recruiter. That's how he interacted. That was how Jane Doe in this case knew him. There was another guy who worked with Gavin Potter to recruit young, attractive girls for Bridge Publications. That guy's name is, I literally just had it on top of my head. Oh my God, Brendan Faust. Brendan Faust and Gavin Potter were known as one of the two biggest hotshot Sea Org recruiters. It didn't hurt that those two gentlemen themselves are attractive people. I mean, that's how Scientology does it. They just want to honeypot everybody. Even the fundraisers tend to be attractive people. I guess perhaps it's human nature. Oh my God, what is this? I didn't realize I had this big red spot on my head. Okay, so what the hell am I saying here? So, oh yeah, the nature of this lawsuit is actually that Gavin Potter was specifically targeting underage Scientology girls for recruitment to become Sea Org members at Scientology's Bridge Publications. If anyone familiar with some of Scientology's campus in Hollywood, there is what's called L. Ron Hubbard Way down by Sunset and Fountain. L. Ron Hubbard Way runs north-south. At the very south end of L. Ron Hubbard Way, there's a building called the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles. Just to the east of that building, the next door neighbor of the Advanced Organization is Bridge Publications. Bridge Publications is staffed exclusively by Sea Org members, and yet it's a publishing house. Their role is to publish all of the Scientology books. It's weird because as a Sea Org member, what we knew is that Bridge Publications was in like this weird gray area where if you as a Sea Org member were assigned to be a staff member at Bridge Publications, the labor laws were such that you had to be paid minimum wage. So in some ways, a lot of people wanted to work at Bridge, but because you were being paid minimum wage and Sea Org members in Scientology aren't really allowed to be paid minimum wage, what the Sea Org would do is say that all those Sea Org members owed Scientology money for rent. It was this weird gray area. The Bridge publication staff members didn't wear traditional Sea Org. They didn't wear the same Sea Org uniforms. They would wear regular clothes. Like, there were benefits to being a Bridge staff member, but it was also known that they had a lot of young, hot staff. And that was because Brendan Faust and Gavin Potter would specifically go and recruit these young, hot girls to join staff at Bridge. Why Bridge? I don't know. I presumably we're going to learn more about this as this lawsuit moves forward. But that is the nature, that is the substance of this lawsuit. It's there's a paragraph in the lawsuit that I didn't read. Just, I guess I didn't have it on my list, where the group of girls that would be recruited for Bridge were known as the Bridge Babes. And the idea is that there was just this kind of institutionalized practice of recruiting these young underage girls, having them join the Sea Org and marrying them off to older Sea Org men. And that David Miscavige had a role in this. That's what we're talking about here. And let me see. I won't, I'll go through the, I think this is a 38 page document. I'll go through the rest of it and see if there are some more the details. See, I'm trying not to focus heavily on Jane Doe's personal experience in this thing, because that's not what this video is about. This video is about David Miscavige and Gavin Potter and Scientology. If I look through the details and there's stuff in here that I think should be in a video, then we'll have that conversation at a later date. This is brand new. This is hot off the presses. This is being this suit. Jane Doe is being represented by some of the most powerful and accomplished and scary attorneys in the country. David Miscavige has an awful lot to be very afraid of. Okay, let's jump over to the super chats and then we'll call it a wrap on this video. Sarah Mende, thank you, Sarah Mende. Another one from Sarah Mende. Are there any cases pending outside of the United States? Not that I'm aware of, but if I hear of any, I'll let you guys know. Raven Dahl, thank you very much. Lisa Robinson, hopefully the Keebler elf will go down soon. Can't be soon enough. Raven Dahl, thanks for giving them Hades. Thanks for giving them Hades. Oh, giving them hell. Can you tell us how Mike is doing? All of you guys are amazing for having the strength to tell the truth. Raven, I did a little update video 2 days ago about a little update video that Mike and Christy put out themselves. He is doing better in measurable ways, and it will be about 10 more weeks before he can go back and get another PET scan and see if there are statistically meaningful improvements that can be measured medically. So when they announce more information publicly, I'll definitely share that with you guys. Russ Hampton, Danny is already marked and everyone is waiting for him. Keep up the awesome work. The castle is falling brick by brick. Thank you so much, Russ Hampton. I really appreciate it. LS Bjorn with the super sticker. Thank you very much. Let's see. Addison and Steele. Hey, Aaron, do you think that these lawsuits are moving to class action, lawsuits where many people may join, or will these fights continue to be solely based on a case-by-case basis? Can you ask your law friends? Yes, it is a good question. I don't have really any understanding on what mechanism exists for lawsuits like this to be turned into class action lawsuits. I don't know anything about that. So that would be a good topic of discussion for me and my lawyer friend, Zach Morgan. So we'll have to make that happen. Thank you, Addison. Let me see. Liam, I don't get it, Aaron. Why does Scientology target people like you who don't care and welcome it? Why not say nothing? Is that against LRH policy? Hashtag Team Mike. Yes, Liam, you hit it right on the head. It is against policy to just do nothing. And that's why I say they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves. And it's not just me. There's now dozens and dozens of SPTV channels, former Scientologists speaking out, telling their own stories. And everyone who tells their own story is automatically exposing the abusive policies and practices of Scientology, because their policies and the practices are such that every single former Scientologist who has a story to tell, it is a story of abuse, destruction of families, harassment, just horrible treatment of people. And so Scientology still, you're going to see this roll out as time moves on, will continue to be unable to help themselves. They will launch the most ridiculous personal attacks against people who have YouTube channels that have anything to do with Scientology. I mean, just look at the Degraded Daughters channel. They're already harassing Vanessa LaRose, and in all sorts of ways that you'll continue to hear about. It's just insane. But, you know, that's one of the positive things about having this YouTube as a platform where all these former Scientologists can tell their stories is, at the end of the day, there's really nothing Scientology can do. They can try to do a lot of silly shit, and they always will try. But is it going to be effective? I argue no. I argue all of Scientology's harassment and intimidation of former members is money thrown down the drain, because now we're in a day and age where those members can just turn all of those efforts right back around on Scientology. And yeah, it's we're in a new dawn. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. Something like that. All right. Veronica Bombria. Thank you, Veronica. And Chantel Charnock. Do you think the mainstream media will start reporting more on Scientology now that more court cases are happening? I do, actually. I do think we're going to see that. Yeah. All right, everyone. That is all I've got on this. I do have a lot more to come today. I know it's Sunday, but I did take the day off yesterday. So we'll see. There's more to come. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click wow.